Trying to avoid that quarantine 15. Hey, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, Adrian here. Speaking of quarantine, that's what I want to talk about today, in the sense of what I've been up to amidst this whole quarantine-like situation. I understand right now it's difficult. It can be tough times. If you're like me in the city of San Francisco, you may be confined to a shelter in place. You may be on a full-on lockdown. There's a lot changing day to day right now, and understandably so. Now, with that said, I want to make light of the situation in the sense of I want to talk about what I've been up to, how I've been taking kind of the opportunities at hand and making the most of it, and hopefully coming out better because of it. So with that, I want to talk about what I've been up to and or hope to be getting done during this whole kind of quarantine-like situation, however long it may last. So a week ago, before the city of San Francisco went officially on a mandate to shelter in place, I sat down with my iPad and I kind of jotted down notes regarding my kind of quarantine to-do list. In a sense, taking a look at the things that I've always wanted to do, those kind of long action to-do list items, those long-term projects, things I've always just kind of been put by the wayside. I also kind of looked at my life in terms of like, what are my interests, what are my hobbies, what are the things I always want to kind of set more and prioritize more so that I can, improve, better myself, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, the goal to ultimately for all this is to get through in a way that, whatever that means for you, whatever that looks like for you. Now, when I come to think of a lot of these things and the reason why I don't do them, why a lot of people don't, always get the chance or opportunity to do so, it comes down to time, right? And the way I view time is in the sense of like, we have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have 365 days in the year. That doesn't change between you, me, Jeff Bezos, or Bill Gates. The difference is what we do within that time that defines us. And right now, I think we're in a situation where we have a lot of that to define, in a sense. And with that, let's take a look at the stuff that I've been aiming to do. So if anything, this video will serve as like an accountability check to make sure I get these things done. First and foremost, with it being springtime, I thought it's a great opportunity just to clean in general. You're in your house, you're confined anyway, for me in the apartment at least. So making sure I clean up around the place physically. For me, that really means my closet, which I've been meaning to organize for a long time and purge. And don't get me wrong, I love my clothes, I love having a selection, and I've spent way much more than I am proud to admit on the contents of said closet. But I can definitely get rid, purge, and donate a lot of the stuff that's in here that I don't wear anymore. And at the very bare minimum, organize it in a much more cleanly fashion. Was able to remove a lot of clothes off the rack and reorganize things by brand. It's not perfect, but it's a lot of progress. Now, on the flip side of that, digital cleanup. I think we take this for granted a lot, taking a look at our devices, our phones, our laptops, making sure we get rid of unnecessary data, making sure we back up things that need to be backed up, those precious memories and moments, making sure all of that is organized and cleaned up as well. All right, so moving on to the digital side of the cleanup, starting here on my MacBook Pro, I like to think if you like your workspace and your physical desk is your representation of your work environment, then your desktop is your virtual workspace, and the desktop is probably the best representation of that in the sense that it's where a lot of your files go by default, and I know I use it in that manner where it's like the home folder for me, so to speak. So I like to keep it visually appealing. You have personalized it with the background here, and the icons tameable because of the stacks feature in macOS, which saves my life because otherwise the stacks feature turned off, my desktop looks like this, which is essentially just a series of screenshots all over the place since I use that a lot in my day-to-day workflow. The problem with that is once I get hidden into those categories here on the side, I don't do a good job of actually maintaining and cleaning those. So that's definitely something I need to get done. On the storage side of things, my MacBook Pro right now is sporting, I believe, the 512 gigabyte drive after, the recovery partition and whatnot, so roughly around 500 gigs. It's about over halfway full, just barely, so we're sitting around 190 to 200 gigs available right now, which is still a decent amount of storage and definitely workable for me. However, a majority of this is documents, which is I'm assuming video files and vlogs and whatnot that I haven't deleted or moved to external storage, and about 40 gigs to applications, which isn't too bad. The great thing nowadays is macOS has a built-in tool to optimize storage. Previously, there's a lot of third-party apps like DaisyDisk and stuff that people would use, and those still work great, but macOS does have a built-in utility to show you what's taking up the most storage on your Mac. So you can do these things to help optimize storage, or you can look on the left-hand pane here to see, for example, what are the biggest sized applications that you may want to delete. For me, all my top ones are Essential, the Office Suite, Adobe Suite, Final Cut. So I can leave all of those, but I'm sure there's a ton of apps lower end here that I can delete and remove. Documents wise, as you can see, is where a majority of my storage is being taken up in the large files category. You can see number one is my Windows 10 virtual environment, which I do need for work. However, the rest are all vlogs, and especially with these 4K vlogs, they tend to range from anywhere from 3 to 7 gigs. So I can definitely start to delete and or move these to external storage for backup. Just a tip, if you're going through this process, it's useful at least in Mac OS, and I believe there's a way to filter on Windows as well by specifically either file type or size. I like to go by size typically to see what the biggest files are in a given area. However, a lot of times it also makes it easier for me to sort by kind or type. This allows me to, for example, find images and screenshots, which I take a lot of here, and easily filter out what I need to remove. So being in the Apple ecosystem, having an iPhone as my main device, I'm a big proponent of their environment and that of iCloud, so I subscribe to an iCloud subscription. However, it's constantly full or approaching full. Currently, I'm on the 200 gigabyte per month plan for $3, but I think it's about time to upgrade to the 2 terabyte plan for an extra $7 a month for that much more data, just because it's so vital. And even though that being said, I do need to do some spring cleaning here, because a lot of times it's bulk being taken up by photos and videos, and a majority of that is my kind of the raw vlog footage. So a lot of just the old vlog footage I don't tend to delete, have already backed up to a computer or some sort of hard drive. So first things first, upgrade the storage, and then we will look into getting rid of a lot of that data. Much better. So when it comes to data, my philosophy is twofold. First, when it comes to buying physical devices or even cloud-based storage solutions, I think it's always worth paying extra for storage. If it's a couple bucks, if it's an extra $100. One thing I've learned from the past mistakes is it's always better to have more than less. Even if you think you can go with like the lowest base storage and then store things in the cloud, for some people that may work if it's really baseline needs, but I think it's always better to have the extra cushion for storage than less. Second, when it comes to backups, if you don't have it twice, if it doesn't exist twice, then it doesn't exist at all, meaning things that are important to you should be backed up to some capacity, whether you use these automated services, which I think make things 10 times easier, so you don't have to worry about it. It just automatically does it to your external, to a cloud, whatever it may be. Because when it comes to manually backing up things that I should be doing, I'm not as great as that, so having those systems in place are always, always important. For the tech side of things, and for you tech viewers out there, I've had this Raspberry Pi. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially this like kind of small minimal computer that it's like a project computer that you can use to set up all sorts of crazy things, like a Minecraft server, a full-on desktop. It's like a hobbyist computer that you can really configure to do so much. The scope is just so wide, and that's what I've been trying to decide what I want to do with it, when I want to set it up, and this is the perfect opportunity for me to do so. And just like that, my Raspberry Pi 3 is all set up and configured with the Raspbian. I am VNC'd into it right now via my Mac, so you can see I can see everything going on the machine, whether I run it on a screen or headless. Honestly, I still have no idea exactly what I'm going to use it for, but at least it's all set up. So future me chiming in here, what I ended up deciding to do was installing a Raspberry Pi installation, or I should say, I guess a Pi-hole installation on the Raspberry Pi. For those of you who don't know what Pi-hole is, essentially it acts as a DNS gateway, or I guess in this case, black hole, for any traffic that goes through your network. The idea here is that Pi-hole is going to be blocking all the ads and trackers that go through your network. So where you might use something like AdBlocker just specifically on your browser, on your computer, Pi-hole can do it across the whole network. It can do it for your phones. It can do it for your smart devices like your TVs. It can do it for anybody else who joins your network if you set it at a DNS level. And that's what I decided to do here. So I configured the Pi-hole, and then after that, I set it up so that our router routes through the Pi-hole in order for it to process things like DNS, and then from there, it blocks ads across. With the shift to kind of like all the gyms around me closing, our apartment gym closing, shifting to do kind of in-home workouts to kind of keep active, keep fit, where it's kind of limited to go outside right now. So trying these at-home workouts. So if you can Google them, you can go on YouTube, find a bunch of them from YouTubers out there. There's no shortage of them, and if you have equipment, you can take advantage of that. Otherwise, you can do like body weight exercises and whatnot. But that's something I've personally been trying to do just to kind of have a little bit of activity in my day, being that I'm spending most, if not all of it, inside.
Shooting peak. Today, we're going to do a beginner resistance band home workout.
Perfecting the small things. For me, this means a cup of coffee. I'm a proud caffeine addict. I have my daily dose of coffee a day, and typically the convenience of like going to my favorite cafe, going to like a Blue Bottle and getting my coffee and going on the go is easy. Being at home nowadays, I'm making it on the daily, and I'm having more time to put towards that whole process and experience, right? And for something that's so small, it makes a big part of my day. So those small things, perfecting a good cup of coffee for me is that.
Yeah, not bad. Sweet. Take a dessert coffee.
I think a general one for a lot of people is always like, not even when we're in like this kind of shelter in place kind of quarantine situation, it's to read more, it's to learn more. A lot of people tend to have the excuse of just not having enough time, and that's the reason they don't get to like read that book they want to read, or finish that thing that they've been trying to learn, whether it's a new instrument, a new language. It always comes back to that of time, and I think if there's one excuse we can't really use right now, it's the lack of time. So this is a really great opportunity to sit down, read that book that you've been meaning to read. For me, it's The 4-Hour Chef by Tim Ferriss. There's also audiobooks, ebooks. There's of course all sorts of resources from Skillshare, Coursera, YouTube, Google, the internet in general. If you want to learn something, now's a really great opportunity and time to do so. I know for me, I've always wanted to pick up and refine like language skills. I've always wanted to kind of dabble in instruments, and while I've bought on like keyboards and instruments in the past, I've honestly never been disciplined enough to stick through with it. So we'll see. On the creative side of things, as a creator, I know it's difficult right now to create amidst all of this kind of real life, real world situation going on, scenarios. I also think it's the most important time to create. It's the most important time to help entertain and provide our audience with something to consume. And as a creative, I think it's a really great opportunity to express that creativity, whether it's writing or recording a video and videography, or recording a music or track, a song, instrumentals, whatever it may be. It's a really great time to kind of hone in on that craft. I know for me personally, that isolation in the past, that focus and drive really stemmed from me having a lot of ample and idle times on my hand. Back in the past when I started YouTube, I remember like when I would get on those summer breaks or those winter breaks when I was still in school, it was a perfect opportunity for me to do a deep dive into this passion project of mine. And that's how I discovered this. Like, that's how I got into content creation. That's how I got into YouTube. It was just a lot of free time and directed and channeled into the thing that I was into at the time. And that may be the case for some of you. You may have the time to explore those passion projects, those hobbies, those crafts that you've always wanted to kind of do a deep dive into. And that goes into the other small stuff too. I mean, for me, like catching up on movies that I've been meaning to watch. I used to be a huge movie buff, always watching the latest releases and big pictures out there. I know in the last year, like I didn't even watch like even half or like a quarter of the like nominated movies. So catching up on that sort of thing. Music, I love, like keeping up with the latest albums and my favorite artists. So, doing a deep dive. I'm somebody who likes to listen like from the album from top to bottom and really kind of absorb it. So this is a great opportunity in general just to do something like that. I want to emphasize also it's okay to be bored. And I think a lot of the things we're seeing a lot of now with people like, quarantine day 1 versus like day 7, it's okay to be bored. It's okay to relax. It's okay to just recharge. I know that, with all this stuff I have, I'm talking about wanting to do and or doing, it's okay to not be productive. It's okay to be lazy. It's okay to do what you have to do, binge Netflix, play video games.
Before we even start playing.
What's that? Number 1.
Make sure you get that second place in there too.
Trash. Quarantine got us like... Not gonna lie, it's been a minute. Yeah, buddy. Boys definitely last place. Which I'm certainly doing a lot of, don't get me wrong. And that's totally fine. Whatever gets you through at the end of the day is what I am trying to, get down to. That's all that matters, right? For me, the way I look at this, I have this time anyway that I can allot to do things I've always wanted to do, so why not? I'm all about always having the opportunity to better yourself, whether it's in a state of quarantine or not. This just happens to afford us that opportunity to do so, so I'm choosing to take it. And I hope you do too, in whatever fashion or form works for you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, enjoy, and I'll catch you all in the next one.